Vamos a empezar entonces. So we are going to start. Thank you very much for attending the reading. Les doy la bienvenida a las lecturas.
I welcome you all to the readings of the closure of our project, Inquietud, Disquiet. This is the first of 3 readings where you will be able to listen to those who participated in the project during the last 3 months. Inquietud, Disquiet consisted of 3 online workshops of creative writing in Spanish, aimed to the Spanish-speaking community in New York. The readings and the writing proposals that were made in the workshops were also shared through social media in a bilingual way to invite those who would wish to write in English or in Spanish. We worked from poems of various Latin American authors, and each week there were about 40 people writing with the same, stemming from the same readings and writing proposals. We're happy with the result of the project because it was amazing to enjoy that variety of voices that somehow dialogued between each other, had a dialogue between each other. Each week we were publishing text in social media and in a blog. Now we will share the blog, FB, and Instagram details so that if, should you wish so, you can continue reading. Inquietud Disquiet is the virtual version of Writing in Transit, Escritura en Tránsito, a project that was going to be made in September this year at the ferry station of Staten Island. The idea was to meet and have a writing workshop in a public place near the station. We were also going to distribute some pages with a reading and a proposal so that passerbys would have an invite and write during their trip or their commute on a ferry or a bus. Due to the pandemic, as you can imagine, Writing in Transit did not manage to be held, and it took the shape of this online project that adapts many of the elements of the initial idea. During all the phases of the project, I was able to work with the support of Culture Push. I would like to thank them very specially for their time and the support they dedicated to us. It was possible to be done and to adapt it to the new circumstances thanks to the attentive gaze, the advice, and the resources that Culture Push made available to me. I would like to especially thank Clarinda McLeod for her unwavering support and efforts. We also received the support of New York State Council on Arts, from Poets and Writers, World Up Community Bookshop, and the National Writers Union. The name Inquietud Disquiet came as a reflection of my own emotional state at the beginning of the pandemic and the intense desire of turning that disquiet into something good. The ideas that support this project, such as my work in general, are simple. I learned them from others and I remember them every day thanks to others. For example, thanks to the poets that we read each week and the people who participate in the workshops. We forget about it many times, but words, language belong to everybody. Every day when we tell a story, when we share a joke or a sorrow, or when we get mad, we make them shine in a new way. Even in quiet, words move us. They bring us closer. With them, we think about who we're going to be and where we're going. Words disquiet us and also make a place for calm. This project was an invitation to turn our disquiet into stories, letters, and poems. I would like to especially thank my friends who collaborated with the project, Marianela Fernandez and Guadalupe Faraj, who coordinated 2 of the workshops, Juan Pablo Fernandez, who took charge of the graphic design, Daniela Gitlin, who translated most of the work, and also the poets that allowed us to use their texts in our workshop, and especially everybody who participated. May I please ask Clarinda McLeod to tell us about Culture Push's work, and then Marianela Fernandez will begin to present today's readers.
This is, so it's really a privilege to be here and to see this culmination of a year and a half of so many different journeys we took together. So Claudia is a fellow in our Fellowship for Utopian Practice. And the Fellowship for Utopian Practice is a program of Culture Push. And Culture Push is an organization that supports programs at their very beginning. So we work with people who are at the very beginning of an idea of how to connect artistic practice, civic engagement, and social justice. And we try to nurture the idea so that it can become something in the world, maybe just a method, or something like this, which is a full reading and workshop and engagement. Please look us up if you have ideas, if you are an artist, or if you're just interested in other kinds of work like this. Thank you so much. I am really excited to hear what has come, and wonderful work, everybody.
Selene nació en Puebla, México.
Selene Sanchez was born in Puebla, Mexico. She's been in New York for over 20 years. In her free time, she loves to explore the 5 boroughs of the city and also the different cuisines and the varied cultures of its inhabitants. She's got a bachelor's degree in psychology from the City College of New York.
Selene, dale.
No puedo describir mi nacimiento.
I can't describe my birth. My mother doesn't remember it. I was born in a shabby house in a town where there is spring all year round. My mother had a dangerous delivery with me without medical attention. She did what poor women do in Mexico. She paid a midwife. It may sound funny, but I came onto the world bottom first. At 4, we used to live in Grandma Juana's house. It was no longer spring, hot earth where cane grows. My naughty hands wanted to play with a doll that was on top of an armoire. I picked a chair, stood on tiptoes. I had the toy in my hand. My victory would not last, since a scorpion stung me. It would not be the last time. 2 years later, when our father left us with Grandma Juana, I found myself in the same situation. I remember everyone was frantic about me. My father picked me up, nestled me in his arms, and we exited into the night towards the clinic. His anguished feet ran. My eyes closed. A deep sleep came over me, the type you don't want to wake from. I was reborn 3 times before arriving to the world and to my childhood.
La temperatura en el cuarto cambia.
The temperature in the room changes. It feels cold. The cat is resting on the bed with me. I cover my feet with a blanket. The cat gets up and looks towards the door. He curves his back, hisses. His fur stands on end. He flees like a coward. He slips through the half-open door. You've scared him. You've always enjoyed that, even when he was unaware. I smell your aroma of a country dawn. You fill all this space that for me is so big with your presence. My tears fall. I pray for you every night. I even leave a full glass of water for you. It may not be enough. I saw you in my dream. You blamed me that I don't remember you. I begin to pray. The cautious cat inches forward. He walks quietly towards the bed. He feels safe with me. Since you left, he's my companion. Doris Tapia was born in Cusco, Peru. He lives in the United States for the past 19 years. He is a professional in the areas of culinary arts, childcare, and cleaning of apartments. She is a member and a leader of the National Domestic Workers Alliance, where one of the aims is the empowering of workers, improving the sector to be appreciated and treated with dignity.
Mudanza.
Relocation. I was about 5 when we moved to the big house. We left the beautiful gardens with grass and fruits that belonged to my mother. I would stretch my hand to reach a red plum. I'd love to wake up to the moist aroma of grass and earth, the scurrying of guinea pigs, and the crowing of the hen. On weekends, we'd go back to the house with the beautiful gardens, but it was no longer the same. I don't know whether it is because we knew that once Sunday was over, the magic would end, or because perhaps we were leaving childhood behind. After the big house, the dance of relocation moved to the rhythm of the passing years. From the imperial city of the Incas, I moved to the city of Reyes, where I lived for many years and welcomed my Ususi into the world. I arrived to the Big Apple on spring 2000. I fell in love with the seasons, so delineated. My favorite is winter. I love the snow and the holidays. On the 4th of July, people throw fireworks and barbecue, and I remember my mother with those beautiful hazelnut-colored eyes that stop shining on that very date. Now I think of all those lights and all that fanfare is for you. I see you, you don't see me. My mind is losing the ability to remember many things as clearly as before, but some images remain forever. I remember your hands on my shoulders in front of the white Christ, praying for my path in life to be led by his hand. I see you through a screen. You don't see me. You don't know I am there. Nevertheless, I believe in your heart you do know that I can feel the blessing you pour upon me every day. I see you through a screen. You don't see me, but I am there with you, beside you, listening to your stories as before, as always. Your legs have lost the agility of the cougar, but that spark is alive, that active spirit, alert to what's going on. I see you through a screen, you, my guide, my master, my taita. The woman of the talking mirror. I look at you and I don't see you. Time has drawn wrinkles on your face, on your hands. Now your hair is tinged with gray. I seek you and I don't find you. Ah, there you are, little Chascanyawi, with long braids, still alive within the traveling mirror. From the mountains to the coast and now in the Big Apple. We change moldings and shapes. The timid, fearful woman is now a warrior, covered in experience and prudence due to innumerable falls. You are a crownless koya, dressed in vigor and strength. You travel through time, always thirsty, looking to bloom. Your smile is now trapped in a mask, hiding your puka lips. They're not Gucci or Prada. They're made by the skillful hands of the wonderful fruit of your womb. Go ahead, virtuous woman, loyal companion of the talking mirror. At the beginning, it was survival. I immersed myself in something known but new. I learned to adapt. Under my eyes, I have these lives. To teach them before and to learn from them now is one of the highest satisfactions. I love these beautiful faces, their arms that tangle up on my neck. I adore their long, tangled up hair. I now see, as the years go by, that what was sowed with love gives great fruits. I love exploring places with them. Museums, parks, gardens, musical events, and the list goes on. We do enjoy the pool, the swimming pool. Each one takes their turn to go on my back and we go in the water. We run races in every swimming style until our lips are tinged purple and our fingers are pruned. I practice my culinary skills with the Peruvian flavor, which is their joy. I like what I do. Sometimes I think it's not work because I enjoy it so much. Who would have imagined that my life would turn this way when arriving to New York?
Isabel Blandet, peruana, jubilada, antigua traductora.
Isabel Blondet, Peruvian, retired, former UN translator. She's lived in Lima, Moscow, London, New York, and Geneva, but for the past 5 years she has no mailing address. She's the proud mother of 3 kids, a sculptor, a filmmaker, and a researcher who live in New York. Recently recycled as a travel curator and a specialized guide in the Silk Road, titles that she herself has endowed upon herself. At the moment, she is in Lima, where she arrived to divorce the same man for the 3rd time and was stuck due to the pandemic. In her solitary confinement, she cooks, reads, and writes with no discipline, just like before the pandemic.
Cosas que me inquietan.
Things that unsettle me. Seeing my mom when I look in the mirror, seeing my full body, my nose when it gets stuffed, my pants that keep shrinking on me, my bank balance that keeps declining, the fear of contagion, which is being lost, not having pronounced a word all day long, not having changed my pajamas until nightfall, not falling asleep until dawn, the closing of borders, zippers that no longer zip, things that unsettle me, the sea, my eyelashes, the stock market, nuns when the Pope arrives, the airport dogs when they detect a mule.
Voy a leer un diario de viaje. Esta mañana he llegado a un lugar en el
This morning I've arrived at a place that, so they say, the rivers, falls, shaman, and ayahuasca abound. I've just eaten pork jerky with yucca in a restaurant surrounded by rubber trees, pumaquiros, anthuriums, and birds of paradise. Far away, we can hear the ominous sound of an electric saw. Nearby, technocumbia that comes out of a loudspeaker, an old loudspeaker. There is an insidious heat. I am just by myself on the terrace, and the waitress looks at me impatiently. I don't want to go back to the cabin yet, because the night will still be endless. I request a beer. Every now and again, I stop writing to fan myself with my diary. Night is falling, and I'm afraid mosquitoes might start biting. 2 flies buzz over my plate where I have left a leaf of lettuce and the tomato intact due to precautions. I am more worried about my senile prudence than an intestinal parasitosis. When I was young, in this paradise-type place, these fears would have seemed miserable to me. What's wrong with me? Only a decrepit spirit could miss the cleanliness of the cubicle where my days used to pass until not so long ago. I have come here due to the memory of other trips to places such as this, of living the moment, of not being afraid of anything, of romping naked on the river and abandoning myself to the current, holding on to some vines, of reveling on the shining of the drops trapped on my lashes against the live backdrop of the jungle, of looking for the sky among the treetops that hug each other and shimmer in the dawn when macos come to stay on their branches. What happened to me is as if with every step that took me away from here, I would have lost, drop by drop, imperceptibly, the nectar of life. I am now dry, empty of paradise. What has changed here? Why do I see everything different? The green still rules around here. The sky, just like before, during the day is not the protagonist, but by night the stars suddenly appear as if they were poured from a bucket over the terse ebony of this firmament. I am the bucket. I am now empty and alone, spinning into infinity. When I was already with one foot on the airplane, my brother, the doctor, decided to tell me that I should have been vaccinated against yellow fever and dengue. And I didn't buy repellent because I had already too much in my luggage. I have some heavy boots that take up half my suitcase, and they won't only not be good for anything, but if I was to put them on, I would be the laughingstock of the town. Women here wear flip-flops or they go barefoot. A mosquito has gone on my forearm, and another one joins the banquet. I let them be for a few seconds, then I shoo them away, and I think I'm glad I brought my antihistamine. Everything around me makes me uncomfortable and disquiets me. The years have expelled me from every paradise. Like an ancient and contrite Eve, I have turned back on the long way back just to find this bizarre Eden where nothing no longer tempts me or invites me, and everything is menacing. A soft blanket of foliage covers the road that goes from the restaurant to the cabin. The solar lights turn on when I go through them, but they give a very tenuous light. Something is moving in between the bushes. My heart skips a beat. Something flutters in between the branches. I was so unworried. I used to be down very dark paths without thinking of anything else other than the sweetness of Adam's lips. And now, ashamed, I hurry on by. Tarapoto, May 2017.
Jorge Prado.
Jorge Prado was born in Sierra Grande on November 2nd, 1976, in Patagonia in Argentina. He spent his childhood in Puerto Madryn, where he went to a technical high school. He then finished his university studies in administration in Buenos Aires. He believes that science fiction and fantastic literature hide propositions that cannot be made elsewhere, and that people who live in deserts know something.
Inquietud es que inquieta.
I am unsettled by rules that change according to phases. I am unsettled by towns that move unsettled, following nothingness. I am unsettled by logic that unsettled avoids the laziest minds. I am unsettled by leaders who, unsettled, decide between false truths. I am unsettled by vultures who, unsettled, celebrate. I am unsettled by time, who is not unsettled by anything.
Esto es un pequeño cuento.
Making wine.
Haciendo vino.
What I'm about to tell did not go on the way I'm going to tell it, but it did happen. It was in Sierra Grande, sometime before the mines. Ruta 3 was a dirt road, and the trip, especially for heavy-duty vehicles, was very, very long. Depending on the conditions, it could take full days to travel between cities that nowadays we go to for some paperwork or just to drink some mate. We won't even mention vehicles. The weather was also different, or felt different, harder in summer, roaring winter, many times fatal. The bar was empty. The young innkeeper, doing everything that you would do in the afternoons while waiting for somebody to drive by. Generally, almost everybody who passed by would stop, at least to have a chat. Then a truck loaded up with wine barrels stopped. The man asked to see one of the rooms, and after confirming they were habitable, he said he would rather stay. He sat down and asked for food. The guy was not very open or talkative, and communication was just strictly necessary. He came from the north. He was carrying the wine to the south. He didn't want to be there. At some point, possibly to avoid the silence, the innkeeper goes out and sees that the truck is leaking a very, very fine thread of liquid. It was the wine. "Sir, One of your barrels has a hole in it. If you need to fix it, no thanks, I saw it. I'm only paid to drive, not to fix barrels. It's not my problem. Scarcity and necessity make certain feelings that would not be normal in society be completely impractical in others. There was no hesitation nor shame. The innkeeper took out a pan and showed it to the chauffeur from far away to the driver, and the other one just shrugged his shoulders. As the pan filled up, the visitor finished his dinner and went to his room. The innkeeper picked everything up, washed the dishes, and came out with a chair, a beer, and a bigger bucket. At that point, trucks that made shorter trips and who were known to the innkeeper started to drive by. The first trucker was surprised to find him sitting outside. "What are you doing there, Emiliano? Let's go inside and have a drink." "I can't. I'm making wine. Bring a chair and you can help me. If you've got a big bottle or a demijohn, bring it down." The second truck arrived. "What are you doing outside, boys? We're making wine. The driver doesn't want to fix the barrel, so what one throws away." The one that just remained turned back and went back to the truck. They thought he would go to find a bottle, but he came with a small tool in his hands. "Look, what we won't take, the earth will take from now on, because this wine will not get to Santa Cruz. But the way you're doing it is no good for business." Only after finishing his speech, he showed them the punch tool. They said it was a good end of that working day for the drivers that went through Sierra that afternoon.
Pablo Pereira.
Pablo Pereira was born in Avellaneda, Buenos Aires, Argentina. He's an actor, a singer, and a producer. He created the Astoria Tango Club in Queens, and he's a singer from Aces of Rhythm. He is a furious fan from Racing Club of Avellaneda.
Hola, ¿cómo están? Era un verano marplatense.
It was a Mar del Plata summer, with the ladies playing canasta on a little table with elastic so the cards would not fly away, with the mate brought by the Antichela, where pastries and gossip circulated. Pastries in rigorous order. Gossip, nevertheless, would just crisscross and interweave with other gossip. My cousins and my sister were having fun digging a hole in the sand and singing the latest hit. The heat would pile up onto the ladies' cards, over the bodies, over the gossip, and over the sand. I felt the sea calling me. It wasn't the first time. Since I was very young, I loved to go into the sea and feel part of its waves. I had, in my childhood, the fantasy that that wave, the one that would unglue my feet from the sand, came from remote latitudes, from other seas. If one lets oneself go with the waves, you can feel that you fly like birds in an undulating manner. I imagined the sea as a continuity, as a single sea, and I ended up being part of that sea. In water, everything is present. It was that same sea. It is that same sea that Sandokan used to sail in my books with the red covers. Within its pages, within its waves, in the silence of the depths, there was also the Nautilus, and within it, Captain Nemo. Later on, the adults made me understand that those waters could also hide sadnesses. A barefoot woman that fantastically let herself go in those same beaches, the voices of Moreno and so many others that found a silence they did not seek, a silence that was convenient in its depths. I swam, making the most of the elders' distraction, going past the first breaker, the place where the waves move around and become foam. I never liked the dispersion of foam. I always prefer what undulates. Some more strokes, the second break, the sea, or the part of the sea that always interested me. I felt a detachment, like a vacation within the vacation, that was mine. Holidays were of the adults generally. They had a timetable for the beach, to look at window shops, at shop windows, to go and buy sweaters. I felt that going and trying on sweaters in summer was my grandmother's attempt to pulverize my happiness. Or the nightly walk. They were all subject to the adults' wishes. Within those structures that mixed pleasure and displeasure, I had to accommodate surreptitiously, so my grandmother would not discover me being happy, my micro holidays. Then, in the hours I snatched away from sleep, reading among the summary snores, or during the news hour that distracted the attention of the elders, those were mine, just mine, intimately mine. Of all those moments, perhaps the most holiday-y was the moment of the sea. Nobody in my family was as interested in the sea as I was, perhaps because they didn't have any friends that inhabited it. The pirate captain with the intense gaze that was as black as its beard, Ned Land, the harpoonist, Ahab, forever tied up to an immense white mass, the lady that wrote poems, who used to live in that place. I let myself float in its waters, but not like a body, no. At that time, I felt the sea. I felt a part of it. I was not afraid because I was the sea. I let myself float, enjoying my secret vacation, enjoying the embrace of the sea, my own embrace, and I lost myself in that sensation. Suddenly, gray ate up the blue of the sky in front of my glassy eyes due to the little drops, and the sea, or I, remained still as never before, like Aunt Carmen when she stopped suffering. There were no waves, there was an inhuman stillness. No more waves were generated in secluded beaches in other hemispheres. The sea was still. No, because if it was still, it would have existed. It no longer existed. The storm would come later. The drops surrounding my body of concentric circles that would repeat themselves perversely all the way till the eyes could see. The smell of salt, the yells of the adults on the beach, the obedient way I turned back towards the lighthouse mother that claimed me. I didn't like going out, but I also would not have liked to give my mom pain.
Gracias, Pablo. Bueno, Wada.
Hola, buenas noches. ¿Cómo están? Bueno, yo soy Guadalupe Faraj y ahora voy a hablar un
I'm
poco
first going to
del
speak about the
taller
workshop that I
que
enjoyed
quiero
so much, and
hacerlo
then I'm going to give a proposal, and I suggest everybody stays because it will be a lot of fun. Participating in this project with Claudia Prado was really gorgeous for me, because the heart of this project, Inquietud, Disquiet, was to remind us that words are ours, of everybody. They belong to everybody. I coordinated Monday's workshops. We were all women from different parts of Latin America, in Peru, Ecuador, Venezuela, Chile, and Argentina. Then I received all of the texts that came through social media, Instagram, email, Facebook, from all the people that took part in this. This reminded us that words are ours and they can transform disquiet into something peaceful, into something calm, into something good. And doing it was like creating a huge bubble, this very famous word now with the pandemic, of language, of writing, of readings, and of different ways of saying things among the different people from the different countries. And to me, that was the richest and the best part of it. The chance of reading so many Latin American poets and also of reading the writings that mixed Mapuche, English, Spanish, for example, what we read by Luis Guerra, was really the most enriching experience for me. Thank you to Claudia and Culture Push. Now I'm going to propose an exercise that we will do in 2 minutes. I'm going to ask you in 1 or 2 sentences to describe an image or a situation that when you remember it, gives you comfort or courage. Claudia is putting it on the chat, and the idea is for you to put your sentences on the chat. So at the end of today, we may be able to read this as a collective poem. We may begin.
Bueno, muy bien. Yo voy a
Okay,
recoger
I'm
todos
going to
esos
collect all of those
textos y los
writings and we
voy a
will
leer.
read them at the end.
Patricia Ramos, nacida en
Patricia
Puebla,
Ramos was born in
México,
Puebla,
sus
Mexico, but
infancias
her
y adolescencia
childhood
en New York.
was in New
A
York
principios de los años
from
90,
beginning of the
le
90s.
gusta
She
leer
likes
libros
to read Latin
latinoamericanos
American
y
books, but
libros
also
en
books in
inglés.
English. During the
En su
pandemic, she
familia
has been
es
working from
ama
home
de
and she likes
casa
to
y
bake
le gusta
banana
leer
bread.
hispanistas.
In her free time, she
Se siente
loves
muy
to see
libre por saber
to
seguir
watch
sus pasiones.
British series.
Fuego.
Fire. The fire of an embrace burns today like yesterday. If my grandmother longed for my grandfather's embraces when he was killed, how can we not wish for the embrace of whoever left suddenly? In gray moments and dark moments, you seek light to go on. The grandmother sought that fire and persisted with life.
Estar en movimiento como los
Moving, to be in
trenes en
movement like the subway trains, to be patient enough to get to know you more, to finish up understanding whether it's the same to ask for a tuna sandwich or un sándwich de atún to the Puerto Rican bodega man. Tuna, a fish with chilies with vinegar and tomatoes with lettuce, or tuna, the cacti fruit of in Mexico. That is so confusing. Or perhaps I can explore further. You are an apple full of different cultures and words from the world. For some people, Spanglish is a daily thing, and for others, it means going against established tongues. For some, Spanish has their R's very well pronounced, and others sing-song it like a salsa song. Or maybe salsa is so full of rhythmic music that they forget to vocalize. I'd rather stay to know the depth of here and not going back to my little town.
En tus hombros no te das cuenta, pero
In your shoulders, on your shoulders. You don't realize, but the peace I seek is in your shoulders. You're lost in another world that doesn't allow you to live, where I cannot go in. I wish you could renounce that world to be with me. If I could offer you a place beside me to save you, I would have done so already. You are like Moby Dick. I am like the conquistadors looking for El Dorado, and I don't realize that I hurt myself in the process. You are in the depths of a dark forest, and I cannot go after you. I better put you to one side of my thoughts and leave a lamp beside me when you come back.
Gracias, Patricia. Hermosos.
Rosario Muñoz.
Rosario Muñoz is Chilean. She's been in New York for the past 4 years. She is a draft woman and a journalist in different order and quantity according to the moment. She had never done a writing workshop before.
Íbamos pasando y sentí un impulso
Fish.
poderoso por mirar
We
esa
were walking
vitrina.
and I felt the
Había
powerful
varias
impulse to
arbustos
look in that shop
transparentes y no
window.
pude despegar
There was
mis
a
ojos de
greenish
ese humo
transparent
que se
aquarium
me
and
hizo
I could not
corto,
take my
un
eyes
poco
off it for a
eterno, porque
minute.
no había apuro posible.
For that moment that was
Hubiera
short
preferido
and a
quedarme
little
todo el
eternal
día ahí,
because there was
mirando
no
las pequeñas
possible
cosas
hurry.
que se
I would have
movían
liked
en
to stay
distintas
there all day
direcciones,
looking at the
escapando,
small fish
escondiéndose,
that moved in different
jugando,
directions, seeking,
inocentes sin
hiding,
darse cuenta
playing,
de que estaban
innocent,
encerrados.
without realizing that
Dejaron
they
que
were
creciera su
trapped.
mundo y la felicidad
That was
se
simply their
expandía como si
world,
fuera
and
infinita.
they
Pero sus
gave
movimientos
out
eran lentos y
happiness as if it
calmados
was
que me hizo
infinite, but their
sentir
movements
que
were
dada
slow
su
and
apariencia
calm,
efímera,
which made me
era
feel
más
that their
real.
happiness was
Era
a
la
bit
calma
less
y la
ephemeral
conciencia de que
and
siempre
also
estaba
deeper.
bien,
They were the calm and the awareness that their world was fine, that everything could stop and nothing would happen. Today, walking down the street, I would like to see this aquarium again, to be able to lose myself in it and absorb the calm of the fish and the quiet happiness they gifted me that day. I want them to come and tell me with their slow movements that my world is this and it's okay. My work has a point and water, a little wood and technology. Walking down the street with my mind in a blank to become moved by others. The desk by the window, the banana tree that looks at me all day. The oblique light, the direct light, the perpendicular light, the light that goes underneath my notebooks, the cable, the color, the cloth. My job is my company, the invisible furniture that I take with me to install myself wherever I am. My job is shit. It tortures me. It makes me feel cold. It demands of me. It challenges me every single time. It doesn't love me, and I don't love it. I cannot live without it. It protects me, and it fills me with hope. In reality, my job's job is to fill me with false hope. That's why I hate it and I need it so much.
Gracias, Rosario.
Sonia del Rosario.
Sonia del Rosario was born in Santo Domingo in the Dominican Republic. She's the second of 7 siblings. They all emigrated at different times to the United States. At 19, she had her first son. Coming to the States was very hard for her because she left her husband and her first son, Ronnie, behind. Her son arrived 2 years later and then her husband. In 1990, she had her first daughter. She has dedicated her entire life to her children's welfare, and they are now professionals. She lives in Bushwick, and she is a home attendant. She has 3 grandchildren whom she loves with all the love that a grandmother can give.
Tengo 23 años trabajando de home attendant.
I have been working as a home attendant for 23 years. My first case was an American woman who spoke no Spanish and I spoke no English. I said, "Hello, good morning, how are you? My name is Sonia. I come from the agency Personal Touch." She looked at me and said, "My name is Rora." That same day, I wanted to leave as soon as I went in, but the lady looked at me with sad eyes that seemed to tell me, anybody who comes in never comes back. I answered her through sign language. "Your house has a bad smell." Through signs, I continued speaking to her. "Your house has no ventilation." She also had 4 cats and a dog. She said, "Please stay." She looked at me with such sadness that I felt a lot of sorrow. I stayed that day, but I couldn't even drink water. The next day, when I arrived, I opened the windows. I started cleaning the apartment. I went and I bought detergent with my own money. The next day, I went back to the store and bought other aromas. It took me a long time to clean and to set the apartment nicely. When doctors went to the house to see her, they were surprised about the cleanliness. In time, the cats died one by one. She just had a dog left that was called Rossi. The lady used to buy 2 newspapers and give me one so that I would read it in English. I didn't know any English, so I pretended to read. Thanks to her, I learned a bit. I don't speak English, but I can defend myself. I worked with her for 8 years. My dear Rora, I miss her. Rora was part of the family. She met my family. Every September 1st, I would celebrate her birthday with a cake. I would have dinner with her every Thanksgiving. Every Christmas also, because she had no family. She used to say that me and her dog Rossi were her family. Rossi got sick and she had to put her to sleep. That made her fall into a depression. Sometime later, my Rora died. When I arrived, I found her in bed, dead. Without speaking English, nor her speaking Spanish, we got along for 8 years. She's one of the patients I still speak about.
Ella es una de las pacientes de la que yo todavía hablo. Ok, yo quisiera decir algo sobre el taller.
I started on Mondays on this workshop, and I wanted to thank you, Claudia. I actually did 2 days. I ended up doing Mondays and Tuesdays. I really loved the workshop. It has been a very nice experience for me. I didn't really like to read or write, and now I am beginning to really like writing. And this is all thanks also to my cousin Marisa, who was the one who actually introduced me to you. And if there is another edition of a workshop, I would like to participate. I'd like to say that we have 3 El Rosario women cousins who belong to either one workshop or the other at any given time.
Giancarlo Reyes Martínez.
Giancarlo Reyes Martínez was born on March 18, 1986 in San Francisco de Macorís, Dominican Republic. He has a degree in clinical psychology from the Universidad Abierta para Adultos. He is a specialist technician in learning therapy and psychometry by the Institute of Psychosocial and Educational Services and has a diploma of the Agencia Española de Cooperación Internacional para el Desarrollo as a sociocultural operator manager. In his homeland, he has worked as a social manager and a sociocultural mediator. He loves literature and philosophy. He has been living in New York since 2014.
Primero un paréntesis a Patricia Ramos, que me gustaría probar los pan de plátanos. Ahí que me contacte. Voy a empezar a leer
Perdón,
la introducción de un cuento que se titula Dual. Desperté sudando.
Jewel, I woke up in a sweat. I was out of air. I felt like somebody was choking me from within. For some seconds, I could not recognize my bedroom. Anguish overwhelmed me. A feeling of consternation came over me. It was as if I wasn't I. But seeing Sophia asleep beside me, I reacted. I extended a hand towards the night table and took a glass of water, and then I tried to fall back to sleep. As I dozed, I saw my wife's hands become those of a man that would hold me down by my chest and started hitting me. As I tried to wriggle away, I fell on the floor. The hitting continued until the light went on. It was just a dream, I answered before she asked. She was still by the light switch, watching me, with a worried look on her face. What happened, Miguel? Nothing, nothing. It was just a nightmare. Was it Raúl? Is he back?
Ha sido Raúl. Ha vuelto. Ahí termina porque es solo la inducción. Ahora un poema que se titula
Now a poem. To die and to be reborn. To die. What is to die? It is to depart, to leave behind what was and what wasn't, to be a part of oblivion, of nothingness. It is tasting the poison of the daily things, to drown life in vanity, to lose oneself in what's superficial as you walk through a maze, is embracing comfort without remembering what I used to be or what I am, is to walk away from the glow of your sun, believing there is no way of return, is to forget that kissing is being reborn.
Muchas gracias, Giancarlo.
Entonces, Albina participó de otro taller.
Okay, Albina belonged to another workshop that was given by Brooklyn Library. It was especially for nannies, for child carers, and the proposal was to write a fairy tale or a children's story. Albina Mateo was born in Mexico in a town called Mayorazgo in 1983. She spent her childhood surrounded by nature, and when she was 11, she moved to Mexico City. She learned English due to her job, and when her father died, she had the need to emigrate in order to support her mother and her younger brothers. It's been 10 years since. She has been working in childcare for the past 9 years. Due to the pandemic, she has moved to Connecticut, New York, with the family that she works with. This has been a great challenge, both in professional and personal terms.
Hola, muy buenas noches a todos. Y bueno, voy a empezar mi cuento. Se llama El petirrojo y la ardilla juguetona. Había una vez
The Robin and the Playful Squirrel. Once upon a time, in the middle of the forest, a leafy tree was the home to a family of robins. They had their nest in one of the strong branches, and almost at the treetop, with a spectacular view towards the leafy and extended forest, whereas in the trunk there was a family of squirrels. After a raw winter, spring sprung to dress the trees of beautiful green and to fill with vibrant colors each fern and flower. So each plant and living being would awaken from a big sleep. A little robin opened its beak widely so their parents could feed it. And in the trunk, something small with fine fur was snuggling so near its mother, searching for heat. It was a squirrel. The father would run from tree to tree looking for walnuts from last autumn. The days went by, and the squirrel became furry and full of energy. It would run from one side to the other. Once, as the parents went out looking for more walnuts, she decided to abandon her hutch, and because she was playful and curious, she decided to explore the tree that was her home. She discovered the nest of the small robin. It was still a fledgling and had no strength in its wings to fly. He was in the nest. The squirrel was curious and began talking to the small robin. They remained like that for a long while until the squirrel heard the mother that called her in a worried voice. She ran back to the hutch, and the mother warned her that before leaving the nest, she had to learn everything a squirrel must know for the forest. You must learn to look after yourself. There are dangers out there. There are birds who are hungry and who will not hesitate to trap you. You must also learn to select walnuts and to prepare for winter. You must know how to drink water in the river without the current taking you away. These are things that as a squirrel you must learn. That day they agreed that the lessons would begin after the parents finished the collecting food, and also that the squirrel would not go out of its hutch without its parents until it learned everything. The next day, as every morning, the parents left and the squirrel was left on its own. After a while, it began to get bored and decided to come out and look around. The sky glowed. The sun invited with its rays through the branches. The warmth and the fresh air invited him to climb to the treetop and to enjoy that morning warmth. Without realizing, he began to climb, and in the middle of his path, he found his friend, the robin. This time, he invited him to go with him. Because he couldn't fly, he would observe him with much enthusiasm, and the squirrel snuggled up on a nearby branch to his friend's nest. It fell asleep in the warmth of the sun and with the song of the fledgling. She woke up in time to go home so as not to be discovered. The next day did the same, and so the days went by until the morning came that the robin learned to fly. The squirrel had learned part of the dangers of the forest and must now learn to collect her food.
Muchas gracias, Albina.
Bueno, entonces aquí las cosas que nos traen paz y esperanza. Mirar el cielo,
To look at the sky and breathing deeply. The trees in Alberti, when I used to speak to my mother on the phone, walking around my grandmother's house, sitting in her yard to get the sun. The Virgin of Guadalupe is not just a religious image, but it's also an image of the rushing of the East River, the little waves on Coney Island, the wide swathe of the Hudson River. My image is the phoenix and the power that inspires me with its rebirth after its death. This medallion with my mother's picture in it motivates me and comforts me when I hold it in my hands. Remembering my mother's face and being certain that everything happens for a reason. Making books by hand with friends. the park at sunset, Piedra Libre for all my companions, my friends. When I think that in some time we will be free again, like before, to be able to embrace each other without fear. A zinc tub next to a wooden slat, which is wasted from washing clothes behind the roses, the rose bush, the smell of white soap, the hands of Auntie Maria. When I hug my mother, of the immigrant, consolation, peace, and above all, hope. When I spoke to my mother on the phone, she would always say, échale ganas, when we said goodbye. Walking by the seashore, that reminds me of the powerful strength there is within me. When my eyes find support in those hills, those mountains that look towards me. A tiny photograph of me as a toddler walking in the park with my maternal great-grandmother. I am consoled by the memory of watching my 3 children sleep placidly when they were little, being underwater as fishes swim all around me when I look up towards the surface as the light and raindrops fall from the sky, piercing the ocean, all becoming one. Remembering my maternal grandfather's smile. Whenever there was a problem, he used to say, smile and remember that everything passes. My mother's whisper. The voice of my friends, my mother's voice, my siblings' voices, the voices that assure me that we are still close by. Being alive and being able to breathe and be with my family. Mothers hugging their children, women helping other women. The Zoom screen with the 5 little windows that show the faces of my family. Every Sunday at my mom's house, we all of our siblings get together and all of our nephews for dinner, holding my hand. When I went to live in Madrid, my grandmother, who had never met any of my girlfriends, took my hands in hers and said, fall in love there in Madrid, fall in love. The childhood public presentations that in the end were never disastrous. In a rainy day, I think about my mother and I go back to my childhood when we used to play in the canals where the water fell as a waterfall, and those were the times that make me laugh when I remember them, when I get together with my children and my grandchildren. Something my father wrote on an old book that I found not so long ago. On the first page it said, I adore you so much you can't imagine it. Remembering February 24th, 2010, when I saw my 3 children arrive to the United States a month after I had arrived. Remembering that I was able to cross the border with my 5-month-old daughter.
Muchísimas gracias a todos.
Thank you so much, everyone. I am very moved by what we've written, by all the collective readings, but this collective poem especially. We invite you next week, Wednesday and Tuesday at 6:30 New York time, 8:30 Argentine time. In the next couple of weeks, you can still access the blog to either read what's there or to present different texts that you've written. We will be there for the next 2 weeks. We'll see you next week. Thank you, everybody, for being here and participating, and everybody have a good rest.
Buenas noches.
Buenas noches.
Hasta mañana. Buenas
Good
noches.
night.
Muchas gracias.
Buenas noches.
Bye.